Hello, welcome back to module 6, and this evening, or it's evening in my world right now, in this video we're going to finish up module 6, the essential oils for digestive conditions, with a case study. So I have the basics of it written out here. See if that's nice and readable for you, I hope. So it's a 38-year-old male with a chief complaint of poor appetite. It's been happening off and on for a few years, more than a few years, I think like 5+ years. But for the past year, it has consistently stayed low. Just some details about him. He's very thin. He's 6'1", weighs about 150 pounds, just short of 150 pounds. Let's see. About the appetite, nothing sounds appealing, and so he just puts very little effort in preparing food, and what he does end up eating is usually poor quality convenience foods. He runs on the cold side, very cold side. He has to wear thermals all winter, even inside in the summertime. He wears jeans and socks and a sweatshirt. His energy is erratic. He has a tendency towards low energy and depression. However, if he's really engaged with something and interested in it, then he can rally and have good energy. He has a history of addiction and anger management problems, which he says are under control at this point, though he does use nicotine in various forms. So he has a vaporizer, he vapes it, chews nicotine gum or eats nicotine mints. Occasionally he does chewing tobacco, but he tries to avoid that. So he does have that lingering addiction and that dampening effect on that appetite as well. His bowel movements are easy and regular and easy to pass. He's not that great about drinking water throughout the day, so his urine is often dark or yellow. However, when he does drink water regularly, it's fine. He has very tight muscles over his whole body, and he also has occasional restless legs. And then on top of this chief complaint of poor appetite, for like the past 6 weeks, he has had a lingering congestion in his chest that has an unproductive occasional cough. He had a wind cold invasion about a month and a half ago. Everything else is cleared, but this cough has just been hanging around. His tongue is light red, not bright red. His tongue is light red with a thin white coat, has a very distinct center crack that goes all the way to the tip and has always been there. And it's almost, let me draw a picture here. So his tongue almost does this all the way to the tip, has this shape in it. So rather than it being, a tongue that has like its own crack like that, it's like into the shape of the tongue, and it goes all the way to the tip, this shape. Always been there. He does have liver constriction beams in his tongue and wide, very dark sublingual veins. His pulses on the right are on the deficient side with some slipperiness. The left side pulses are thin and tight at the superficial level and tight overall with some deficiency in the sun position. So the diagnosis that we're working with here, spleen and stomach qi deficiency with liver constraint. or liver tea stagnation. And I'm just going to throw in there too that we have this lung involvement, but that's not primarily what we're looking at. Treatment principles. Tonify the spleen and stomach and soothe the liver. Okay, so that's the diagnosis that we're working with and the corresponding treatment principles. And then, like we did with the previous formula that we went over, we're going to start with thinking about the methods of use so that we then have an idea of how much of the formula that we want to make and work with from there. So for this one, to start with, I just want to do one method of use. I want to do a dilution that he can apply to the upper abdomen, over the stomach, and diaphragm. So we're getting spleen, stomach, and liver by working with that. So I'd like to just start with that with him and see how it works. So then we know that based on our oils and the dilution that we choose, that's how we'll figure out how much of it we're going to make neat. So that simplifies things a little bit when we just have one method of use. And so I'm going to go ahead and write up here the oils that I ended up choosing, and then afterwards I'll just briefly go over a couple other ones that I considered but decided not to use. And as always, please get on the forum if you have any ideas about these. Chime in and ask questions or give suggestions. I'd love to have suggestions. And it's a big materia medica. There's a lot of oils to choose. So because I chose these 4, there's probably lots of other great ones that are going to fit in and be helpful for this as well. So I don't know, I don't see these as set in stone or prescriptive for this particular condition at all. It's looser than that, and it's more dynamic than that, I guess I would say. There's a lot of room for play in creating the formulas, and so I'd love to hear your insights and ideas, and I think your classmates would benefit from that a lot. And that's kind of the bummer part about doing so much of this class taped, but it has its pluses as well. So the oils that I ended up choosing: mandarin, and as the chief, and I decided to do 45%, and we're doing a 6% dilution. We can kind of begin to fold the steps in a little bit and make it move a little more quickly. So if we're doing a 6% dilution, I want to put this in a 10 ml roller ball. So we're going to do 20 drops total. So into a 10 milliliter bottle, we're going to use 20 drops of the formula to create a 6% dilution. So mandarin as the chief at 45% is going to give us, we're going to use 9 drops of mandarin. And we'll go into each oil and why it was chosen in just a moment. I think I wrote this a little bit big to fit all 4 oils. So there's mandarin, cardamom, as the deputy, 30%, and that's 6 drops. Can you see all that? Yeah, okay. And then Litzia as our assistant at 15%. We'll need 3 drops. And then ginger, Envoy, 10%, 2 drops. Okay, and mandarin is a top note. It's cooling. Goes to liver, spleen, and stomach. And it's an 8% dilution oil. The reasons I really liked mandarin for this, even though it's cool and he runs cold, the rest of the formula is warm and will support it. And I really think that the functions of mandarin merit it being the chief. Again, this is, we could flip things around, you could put things into different positions and with different considerations. It's cool, it's not cold, it's just cool. It strengthens the spleen. Calms the Shen. And I like that aspect too, especially with the nicotine component. If we can get the Shen calmed with the oils, the nicotine, if he can back off or stop the nicotine, then that will also really help his appetite as well. It subdues internal wind. And regulates liver qi. So it's strengthening the spleen, regulating the liver, calming the Shen, dealing with wind. Those are all things that we want to be working with in this case study. And then we've got cardamom. Cardamom is a mid-note. It's warm. Goes to the lung and the spleen, and it's 6%. Harmonizes the spleen and stomach. Stimulating to the appetite. And it's helpful for people who are indifferent for what the world has to offer them. I'm not going to write that down up there, but and I think that's a really important function for the 2. I think his depression kind of lies in that. He's a really intelligent guy, and unless something really engages him, he's pretty indifferent, and this can help to, so in stimulating the appetite, stimulates the literal appetite for food, and also stimulates the appetite for intake of what's going on around you in the world. So cardamom. Litzia is a mid-note. It's warm. I don't know where to write this. I don't even know if you can see this. I'll verbally go through that aspect of Litzia. It's a mid-note. It's warm. It goes to the lung, liver, spleen, and kidney, and it's a 4 to 6% dilution oil. There's a couple things I really like about Litzia for this patient in particular. Tonifies spleen and kidney, qi and yang. It's really good for wind cold with underlying deficiency, which I think is this cough that is just in chest congestion that's hanging on with him, is this lingering wind cold with the underlying deficiency. So it's got that wonderful function. And I like that kidney connection that it has too. I think that's a nice thing to bring into this case. And it does still have that liver affinity, lung, liver, and spleen, which is really nice in this situation. And then ginger, I'm going to assume we've got these upper oils. And I'm just going to give Ginger a little more room. Oops, I wrote down the, that's all right. So Ginger is a mid bass note, it's hot, goes to the lung, spleen, stomach, kidney. And it's 4%. I really like its connection with the Ren Mai. So we're using this as an envoy to the spleen and the stomach, and an envoy to the Ren, to stimulate the appetite, to stimulate the motivation for self-nourishment, and warm the middle jiao, harmonize and warm the middle jiao. I do like that it's hot. I think you could use that, especially with the chief oil being cool. It's invigorating and it warms the interior. Oh, and this is ginger. So I also considered for this oregano, which is, the functions really fit well. It's warm, it strengthens the middle jiao, it promotes the appetite, but it can only be used for short periods. It's not for long-term use, and I would like to see him use this. I think he's gonna need to use this for a while. This is not a short-term thing. It's not an acute condition. This has been going on for over 5 years. So that's kind of why I gave oregano the boot. Bergamot was another one that I thought of. It's really great for depression. It's really good at regulating qi, but it just didn't fit quite enough of the bullet points. You know, when you're only using 4 oils, you want something to either be super strong at one thing that it does, or fit, you know, more of the treatment principles that you're trying to address. And then I considered Angelica. It tonifies the lung and spleen qi. It calms the shen by nourishing blood, regulates liver, overacting on the spleen, and it eases cough. So that is one that I think it could be considered as a second assistant. So that's a possibility. It would just change the individual percentages of some of the oils a little bit. But then in terms of, so that's why I chose the oils I did, and then I'll write them back up here just with the, so we've got mandarin as the chief at 45%, and that's 9 drops. Second oil, we've got cardamom at 30%. It's the deputy at 30%. That's 6 drops. Litsea as the assistant, and that's 15%, and that's 3 drops. And then we've got ginger as our envoy at 10%, 2 drops. And then we're going to put this in 6% dilution in a 10 ml roller bottle with olive oil. I like that liver connection with the olive oil. You could choose a different carrier, but I think that one would be nice with the anger management issues, the addiction to nicotine, the liver overacting on the spleen and stomach, and that wind, that internal wind component. I just thought that olive oil might be a good choice. And then I would have him apply this 2 to 3 times a day over the stomach, so the upper abdomen and diaphragm. And I would have him use it daily at this rate for 3 weeks. And then move into rotation. So, and at that point, maybe tweak it a little bit. Maybe it's working, but I'd give it 3 weeks of daily use at 2 to 3 times a day application over the upper abdomen and the diaphragm, and then either move it into rotation after that or adjust it as needed. So yeah, that's the case study for digestive conditions. And we're just doing one case study for digestion, Shen spirit, and we'll see with our last taped module is going to be gynecological issues. I'd love to do 2 case studies for that, but there's only so much time. And so we might just have to stick with one for that as well. And then to keep you guys within our requirements that we're doing here. But again, please, hop on the forum and discuss this case study and formula creation. And then next in module 7, we're going to be looking at individual oils for the Shen and spirit.